We always save it for the VIPs.
All right. So we're currently live. This is a joint meeting of the Paxton Select Board and the Paxton Finance Committee. We are here at the training room at the Public Safety Complex. Today is Monday, July 29th, 2024, and it's currently 7 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Select Board meeting currently, and then I'm going to allow the Finance Chair to call his meeting to order.
We have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order.
Excellent. So we have some things to discuss tonight after we've each had our respective meetings last week. Now we're having a joint meeting to try and figure out, of all the options that were thrown around the room, both on Monday of last week and Thursday of last week, which of those options we want to go with, if any, and in what amount. So there's a lot of things that were discussed at the last two meetings, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather, who has looked into some of the options that were discussed at the last several meetings, so that she can tell us kind of the pros and cons of each of those options, what the constraints are, what options maybe aren't really on the table that we talked about, and what options maybe are on the table. So go ahead, Heather.
Sure, just give me 1 second. I just want to share this here. I don't know if I can hide that participant bar because I'm not seeing it on my side. I wonder if that's on Scott's side. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So I was asked to put together a brief, well, it's 9 pages, but as brief as it could be, a memo just going through all the different funding sources that the last several meetings have covered. So we have them all in one spot, as well as the possibility of each of those funding sources. So the first one here, I went through is free cash. So this was raised a couple times about the potential of having free cash certified. Free cash unfortunately doesn't get certified until after the books close, which is usually around like September 15th. And unfortunately, any free cash that would come out of FY24 would not be available in time for the August 19th meeting. So that's not an option. The second one here, Tiverton Field Lights article funding. So the Tiverton Field Lights is a little bit different than other articles we've had in the past that were voted at town meeting, and it's different because it was a capital exclusion. Because we went to the ballot to vote on the funds, we had talked to DOR about a year ago, and they said you really can't just go in and repurpose the town meeting article like you usually can with articles that you appropriate from free cash or from other sources. You would actually just have to let those funds roll over and turn into free cash, and then you can appropriate the money at that time. So similar to the first source of funds, free cash, the Tiverton Field Lights, at the same point I would argue, is not available until after free cash is certified, which will be after our special town meeting on August 19th. All right. Next
One question real quick.
Yeah, Jeremy.
What did we do, so we didn't use those funds within the year that we did. What did we do? They rolled over, did we repurpose, did we?
We kept the
didn't-
article open.
Kept it open, so
Yep.
now, okay.
But to close out the article, because
Right.
it's not something as simple as just appropriating from free cash, we went to the townspeople. We can't go back to the townspeople and say, hey, you remember that article that we already raised on the taxes? We want to do something different.
Okay.
We have to let it roll the free cash, and then we could bring it back as another article in the fall or another time.
Thank you.
ARPA. So we did talk about ARPA. I went back in, I looked at the balance sheet, what we currently have. I also spoke to Larissa quite heavily. She has a correspondence email out to DOR, and that was as of our last meeting, which was late Thursday night, early Friday morning. I talked to her today. She has not heard back from them. But the concern from the financial folks up at Town Hall is that we've already appropriated that $750,000 for the fire truck. We've already signed the contract. I pulled out my folder today. Back in June of 2022, we were required to send Bulldog a letter, which I have in my file in the office, that says that we are confirming that they should move forward, have a notice to proceed, and we had to identify the source of the funding as the ARPA funds. Yes, we could always change things and do things differently. However, the biggest concern, I think, from the financial angle is anything we do with those ARPA funds that changes the protection that they're currently under, being that contract that's already signed, is going to potentially put them in jeopardy when the federal government is looking at the money that has to be appropriated, or rather encumbered in a contractual form by December 31st. When you take that 750 off the table, you look at what's available. There's about 5 or 6 projects that are still open. I believe 3 of them are with the DPW, MS4 permits, stormwater FY24, as well as the West Street Engineering Project. Those all have a varying balance of a couple thousand to, I think, about 5,000 or 6,000. And at this time, when I talked to Travis earlier this afternoon, he is still utilizing those funds. That then leaves, the library had a little over 1,000 in it. And I think there's one other small project, and then that left 2 projects. One we had talked about at the last meeting, that was the funds for assistance to the public, which has 9,000 and some change, and then the other one is approximately $235, which was the leftover money from the signage, or the signs, the electronic signs that we're done with, and that's complete. So if you add those up, that totals $9,995. If you look at that sheet all the way at the bottom on Larissa's calculation, she did leave $5,000, which I think we should still leave there, which is funds to do a single audit with our auditing firm if we expend over the threshold in any calendar year of the federal funds, most likely being the year that we buy actually pay for the fire truck. That's when that would come into play.
Is that 9,995 inclusive of the 5,000 or exclusive of the 5,000?
That does not include the 5,000. I consider that essentially appropriated. And because we've already contracted with the auditor for the next 3 years, we have the single audit piece there, but we'll have to just do a side contract before December appropriating those funds to make sure we're good to go. The next one here we have is the DPW building site design article for funding. So this came up, I believe it was in the town meeting of FY20, which was in May of 2019, Article 11, to appropriate these funds. This amount is all that's left from what was originally appropriated, being $34,250. Back about a year or so, the Select Board reorganized the DPW Building Committee, which is shown on the town's website, and gave them deliverables. One of the 5 deliverables, deliverable number 2, is actually to utilize these funds to work with Wes and Sampson and DCR and being able to move forward with this project and continually look at the future for that piece. The next one we have here is ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation. So the balance that was on the sheet as of May 31st did not include the appropriation we had done at town meeting, and the reason it did not include it was the $500,000 we had appropriated hits FY26, and the sheet usually stays pretty consistent with the fiscal year we're in. So when you take that balance out, add in $70,000 or so we just got in from receipts from June of this year. The updated revenue report is not yet available because they haven't finalized all the numbers. I just got that number from the presses today from Larissa. That leaves you a balance of $244,712 to start the fiscal FY25 year. I think it is important to keep in mind that this year we did use $500,000 alone just to balance the budget, plus another $61,000 for necessary pieces of equipment that included the Lucas and the, I think I wrote AED, but it was the cardiac care monitor that was included in those pieces. So taking additional funds would just put more strain on that line and may not have as much available in the future. The last one's here, you have operating stabilization. So our current balance is $379,088. If you remember, for FY24's budget, we pulled out $87,000 approximately to help balance the budget. This year, if we pull anything out of this 379, it's available and there to do so, but we haven't been putting any money into this account, and the more we pull out of it, the less will be there in the case we have an emergency. I know we have reserve funds available of about, what did we put, Mark, this year, $50,000. But if anything major happens, and if there's not enough in the operating stabilization, it would mean the difference for the town from going to town meeting to appropriate funds to handle an emergency to going directly to a ballot question to handle an emergency. Let's see, police gift funds. So this was one of the sources of funding that had come up at one of the past several meetings. So here you see that the balance is $52,000 currently, give or take. The amount on the report as of May 31st is a little bit higher. I did talk to the police chief this afternoon. He thought it was less than 55. I got a number around 52 when I checked in with Larissa a couple hours ago. So those funds are available, but it is something that generally has not been used to offset the operating expenses. It's expended at the discretion of the police chief for police-related items and necessities for the department. And then reduction in other lines for the operating budget lines. The one we had talked about the past couple of meetings was the unemployment line. So we had previously increased unemployment when we did the reduced services budget because it used to be 0, but we knew with the reduction of employees, we were going to have to cover the cost for those. We had not previously allocated those funds. The amount currently in it after the last town meeting is actually higher, $68,000. I misread my note of $25K, and I was thinking it was $12,500 per officer. It was $25,000 per officer. I would say that $50,000 being moved would be good. That still leaves about $18,000 in case something happens, as well as the addition of the fact that we weren't counting on folks leaving positions and potentially new folks coming in, because the unemployment insurance line is in the Department of Employee Benefits. That gives us access to it on the health insurance line. Past couple of years, we've been pretty lucky having money left over in the health insurance line with things, the way things work out. This year, with calculations as of the beginning of the fiscal year, with people changing plans and folks we know that are departing, and assuming always the potential that someone could come in that may not have health insurance now, or someone could come in going from an individual to a family plan, we need to make sure we have enough to cover that. And in case we go over, the additional $18,000 that's left there will be able to cover that piece. So I would not wipe that line out entirely for those reasons. All right, and that is the whole piece. You have here the reference part, but I'll pull up the Excel sheet that I've been working on today. Let's see if it wants to share. Probably does not. So let me just reshare here. Anyone have any questions on any of that so far? I bored everyone sufficiently. Awesome. All right, so let's see. Does it want to share? Let's try one more time. Closed captioning, share. All right. Let's see if we can get this bigger. A little bit smaller so it's on the screen. Oh, that's not doing that. That's not. Okay. Because then I go a little smaller. All right, so what we have here, I tried to put everything together on one screen. For those on FinCom and SB in person, you do have a handout in front of you, so you can see it. So you have three columns here, and I set this up this way so that we can look at this tonight, change anything we need to change on the floor, make any modifications, or look at anything differently if that's desired. So over the past several meetings, there's been many different versions of what to be funded. I think we're up to like somewhere around 4 or 5 at a minimum, between the original 2 proposed. Mark had an alternative. I think Carol had an alternative. At some point, I think Julia had an alternative. So Because I wasn't sure which one we were ultimately gonna land on, if it was discussed, it landed here, including the economic development line for $1,000. So anything that was discussed landed in this gray box here for the amount needed. These amounts have all been adjusted. Previously, the officer numbers were minus the 12,500 for unemployment, that's been added back in. And the part-time admin assistant was minus the 5,500 for unemployment. That's been added back in, so it's full cost. In the center column here, you have your funding sources, and if you go to the right of that in the fund balances, you have the corresponding account to it. You have ARPA, so it tells you right here the current number, so the current amount available. And then if you were to use all of that or whatever amount is in the funding source, it does a calculation for you of what would be left over after the special town meeting. So this is probably more helpful for like stabilization, to know if we were to use X, we would be left with Y. So, and yellow means that town meeting approval is required, and blue is just the select board or department head approval, as the case may be with the police gifts.
So what's currently on this as funding sources, is that your suggestion?
So currently, this is my first stab at the seventh apple, or seventh bite of the apple I've taken, so to speak.
Under the FY '25 budget in the funding sources, you have unemployment 55,000. That is different than the employee benefits line item, or is it the same as the employee benefits line?
So the employee benefits line item has 68,604. But in the memo, I said 50,000 because I changed this about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, so that's intended to correspond. Okay.
It is.
So we're looking at, right now, funding sources to include $9,995 from ARPA, $14,900 from police gifts, $55,000 from employee benefits / unemployment, $64,500 from ambulance receipts, and that, which is the amount, that amount was picked because that's what corresponds to what fire needed. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Okay.
Yep.
And then the remainder would be coming out of operating stabilization of $205,360 in order to fund the amounts needed in the prior column.
Yes, and that's if everything stays in that gray column.
Yeah.
If anything comes out of this, then these numbers would go down, and again, this is up to FinCom and SB as to
Yeah.
how you guys wish to proceed with those numbers. I just wanted to start somewhere.
Okay. All right, well, there you have it. I will entertain any discussion that anybody has. I'm sure Mark would as well.
I would.
Make that bigger, we can't see it.
Can try.
See it up there?
Okay. No, I can see it from there better, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll have to invest in
It is tough to get all of that information on one screen, yeah. So I think we need to talk about the amount in the gray box. Are those the things that we want to fund? And then followed by the amount in the green box. Are those the sources that we want to use for funding? Don't everybody speak at once.
I'll start.
Thanks, Mark.
At the select board meeting the other night, we had, near the end of it, we had made a request, because there was, Heather had option 1 and 2, we advanced option 3. There were a number that played out at the select board meeting, and we asked, could we, when the music stops, can we commit this to writing so that we're not verbalizing it and we can know where we're at?
Yeah.
So the good news is it's been committed to writing. The bad news is we've now seen it for 5 minutes. It was not sent to us in advance, which would have been nice. I'm sure there's reasons why it wasn't, but I saw it for the first time when I sat down and took my coat off.
Yeah,
So did we.
right, exactly.
Me too.
And not for nothing, Heather was out on Friday. We had our last meeting on Thursday, and so she put all this information together for us all in one day, which was actually, in my opinion, pretty admirable, so.
So that was actually 2 things. We're appreciative that it's in
Yeah.
writing, but we're absorbing it
For sure.
as
Yep.
maybe we all are right now. That's one takeaway. The other is, the good news is, I don't see override up there. So I think there's a general consensus that whatever the amount is, we're not going forward with an override, that we've gotten the message from the two failed overrides, and doing a third one would be a risk. So that's a good takeaway. The thing that immediately captures my attention in the first column is option one was, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a member of Finance Committee. Option one was 318. We thought that was a little high. Then there was a walk back to just essential services, which was 248. We came in with something even lower that would help with the essential services and not rob from Peter to pay Paul to have to come back and restore that much money. So we were trying to drive it down, and now I look at the first column and it's higher than any of the four.
I think she's just, as she said, she's just trying to give us everything that has been looked at. It's
Right.
for us to pick and choose what from that column we want to.
Right, so I think there's a little bit of work to be done. If I could just make one more comment, and by the way, I don't think there's a person in this room or listening that's not in favor of police service, ambulance service, EMS service. So any discussion we have is not speaking against that. We're speaking about the financial viability of it. But what really strikes me, and if you'll just allow me to go to the middle column, the stabilization fund. I would remind everybody that when we were cobbling together the second override, where the deficit was 835 and we added to it for stabilization, the general sense was, by some, we need that to be added to the stabilization because it's going to affect all kinds of other sorts of things if we don't. And now we're taking 205,000 away from it. So it's the complete opposite direction of where we were 2 months ago. I think that's worthy of some sort of discussion this evening. And with that, I'll just let the discussion begin, but those are my quick takeaways from what I saw and listened to Heather speak. I would say one thing, Heather, in your first opening remarks when you spoke about free cash. You said that that wouldn't be certified until September or October of this year, which would be too late for the August special town meeting. Free cash does not have to go to special town meeting because there was free cash that was spent this year for an interim town administrator, which did not go to town, special town meeting for a vote.
Yeah, it did.
It did. It went to town meeting in the fall.
It was
We
a
did
warrant
2 articles, I think it was, that.
Well, maybe my opposition to it blinded the process that it followed, so I'll withdraw that point, because that would be a wonderful source to not have to go to stabilization if that was possible. Can that be done on a chance?
No,
And it
because
could
the
be
books
put-
don't even close until about September 15th. We have that period of time to get everything in from state for funds back and so forth.
But could it be brought to the special town meeting if it's certified at this particular amount, therefore it could be used, so that does all of it have to be closed and definitive and an actual amount?
Until our books are closed and DOR gives the blessing that we have the amount of free cash that we think we have, we can't touch anything, appropriate
They
anything.
can't vote
spend it.
on
Nope.
spec.
Nope, it doesn't exist at the moment.
So there are other good things to see. The police is obviously using a little bit, I'm sure reluctantly, but at least it's a nice gesture to go forward that they're taking some of their special revenue. The ambulance receipts is a 64.5, which is the exact same amount as they're looking to add, so there's a lot to like about it, other than it's a higher number than we first thought, and stabilization is being
So one of the reasons why that,
depleted quite a bit.
I agree.
Almost 50%.
One of the reasons that the number looks higher is because we have presented the information a little bit differently. So before, we were reducing, or Heather had reduced the amounts for, say, each of the police officers by the unemployment benefit that was going to be offset, right? And so you were looking at, if you remember, we were looking at like 64,000 an officer before. So now she's reflecting the full cost of the officer's salary, not including some of the other extracurriculars, but the full cost of the officer's salary is reflected in here, and so the bottom line number is probably about 50,000 more than what it would have been before, because of that offset of the unemployment coming back in that you didn't really see before because she had lowered the numbers by that same amount. Steve? 30.
I believe I can help my colleague here. If you remember last meeting, there was an impassioned plea by the chief of police and the chief of the fire department around they can't do their job wholly without everything being restored. Chief Mark was quite explicit in giving us the details required. So the 241 is what he said and went on record as saying is what he needed for his department to be whole. The fire, Chief Mike also spoke to the same thing, and DPW. As far as I'm concerned, the three entities of police, fire, and DPW are absolutely critical to the health welfare of this community and its safety. I don't think those are negotiable. If we can find the funding source, that is what we have to do. We as an executive set of folks need to make sure that that is whole if we are absolutely capable of doing so. So I want to go on record as saying the first set, the only thing as far as I'm concerned that should be negotiated or discussed, unless someone has a strong opinion, is the other category which we can look at for 16.2 or 16.3. But I wanted to make sure I went on record as saying that.
Thank you, Steve.
I have a quick question while we're on the special funds. Fund 2216, sale of cemetery lots, currently sitting a little over 100K. Can that be used?
No.
Okay, that's because it can only be
Travis,
used.
do you want to, are you?
I just really need I don't want to get them up just to.
It's just starting to get up there.
We haven't had them up there in a while.
Yeah, we haven't seen Travis's face in a while.
Good evening, Travis Tebow, Director for the Paxton DPW. Could I have you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the Fund 2216, sale of cemetery lots.
Okay,
What is that earmarked for use for, and why can't it be used for this? Just say we wanted to take money out of it as a funding source.
the sale of cemetery lots is for perpetual care for the cemetery.
Okay. And that's all it can be used for?
To the best of my knowledge, that's all it's supposed to be used for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
The only other fund, 2810, Community Compact by the BOS, sitting at 117. What can that be used for?
It can be used for the grant, which it is. So it's the IT grant we received a year and a half ago. We have an extension till December 31st. It is for the modernization and protection of the records, getting things electronic and so forth.
Got it. Thank you. I'm just digging at the biggest funds, you know?
Jeremy, that's the place we're at, right?
I mean, really, yeah.
Nobody can blame you for looking into stuff, so.
Julia, Neil.
Let's let the finance committee finish speaking. Tony?
Why do you assume I want to? I'm just joking. No, I think this is, I appreciate you doing the work. Obviously, it's always great to see it ahead of time, right? But you know, on short, seeing it summed up like this is, you know, just to Steve, to your point, I mean, yeah, there's another category, that $16,000 at this point. We haven't gone through all with the library, you know, losing accreditation. We haven't dug into the costs associated with getting that back down the road, if we imagine there are. So I don't know. That seems like small dollars at this point. You know, if we have the money here and we can, you know, this is where I always wanted to be, was if we had money in somewhere, you know, that was reachable to solve the immediate problem, and then we have another fiscal year to start looking at, can we do things better? You know, maybe we can, maybe we can't, but, you know, not to harp on it forever, but I think this is, I don't like taking the stabilization fund down that far either, but is that something do we leave it like that, or does that get balanced down the road out of, with free cash or something, or is that kind of what would happen, or is that how we envision it?
That's the only way we generally put into stabilization is from
Right.
free cash. Unfortunately, right now, as you know, we're using all of our free cash to balance the budget every
Right.
year. And so we don't have money to put back into stabilization right now.
But again, that's what the next year, I mean, and we know this isn't, you know, we know this isn't a long-term solution, but when you need a Band-Aid, you need a Band-Aid, so.
Yeah.
But, no, I don't have anything else. I think, you know, I think this is probably the best we can do right now.
Any comments from SB?
I mean, in my opinion, this is the best option that we've been able to come up with. My biggest concern is the lack of stabilization that will be left in the funds. And if our 1987 plow truck goes down, which is our main beast, we're going to be in real trouble. And there's just any two ways about it.
Right.
We're going to be in real trouble. And that's my biggest concern, you know. But if you're a working man and you got bald tires and you got $900 in your account, and you can buy some used tires to get you through and not spend all your reserve fund, I guess that's what you do. And just hope it works out.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Kirk. There's a million problems we could anticipate, you know, and they're real.
That's the biggest one I can think of, though, is if
Right.
we have a really big winter, which we haven't, knock on wood,
Thanks
had
for
for a
saying
little
that.
while.
Just insured it.
But one big winter could really put a whooping on us. Travis, you want to speak to that? And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to choose between, do we hire another officer or do we have more funds in the DPW? That's a really bad decision to have to try to make.
Travis from the DPW once again. Just to your point, I want to make you aware at this moment in time, there's a good chance we may have to redline that truck before winter even starts, as well as another one-ton dump truck that we have. We had another truck that we have already redlined, so we're going to do whatever we can with the funds we have. We're trying to put the money that we have for maintenance for the equipment back into the equipment to the best of our ability, and spread it around to keep everything running, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if we're losing 2 more trucks before winter even starts. These are pieces of equipment that I've brought before capital the last year, maybe 2 or 3 for that matter even. That 1989 Mack is far worse than we had been anticipating. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it ready for winter and keep it on the road. Not that I want to add more bad news to the fire right now, but
No,
this is the reality of it.
This is the realization of the whole town and what we're all facing, so.
Yep.
I'm just trying to bring that to light for the 0.002632447% of people who are here or are watching online.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we have other equipment that we have major issues with. So, again, we're trying to do the best we can with what we have for getting everything ready for winter, and we'll try to keep it going throughout the winter months. But there's a real possibility that we're gonna lose equipment and not have enough snow removal equipment for the staff that we do have.
Okay, thank you.
Ben has a hand up.
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it wasn't for you, Travis. Well, it's about the topic in general, but I just want to reiterate the fact, as Kurt mentioned, for the 0.200 people that are here, percent of the town, we're here because the override didn't pass, right? We're here because we have no money. And as, I'm going to go one step further than what Tony said. We're not putting a Band-Aid on, we're sticking our finger in the holes in a dam. At some point, that dam is going to fall apart. And whether it's a cruiser that doesn't work, whether it's the plow, if we don't have money and we're trying to solve these small problems by just playing a shell game, we are in making of our own creation as a town.
Absolutely.
And so, I just, in my mind, we can do something proactive. Proactive is a funny term in this situation. We can fund the police, DPW, and the fire for what we can foresee today. And we're going to have to deal with what happens, unfortunately. And I don't think there's another way around this. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. It was, just for the record, it's 0.00263247 by my calculation.
Thought a few more people might have joined, Kurt. That's why I upped it to 0.2.
A margin of 0.003 of plus or minus, like most polls.
We don't have any more. Seth isn't around. Seth isn't here. Or is
Tim's
he
on,
online?
Tim's on Zoom.
And Tim's on Zoom?
I don't think Seth was,
I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody.
I don't think Seth was able to
on,
join
but
today.
Tim was on. I don't know where Tim is now.
Tim is away and has some business dealings, so he may have had to have left.
To jump off.
Tim just unmuted himself.
Oh, there's Tim.
No, I'm
Oh,
here.
he's there. Tim, I want to give you your opportunity to give your 2 cents.
No, I appreciate it, Julie.
We'll take every cent we can get.
I think, Ben and Tony and everybody on the team really summed it up correctly. Certainly tough times, and, we have to figure out the best situation with what we can do with the money we have. So I think Heather put some great options, again, in context, great options of what we have available to use in front of us. So, but appreciate it, Julian.
Thank you. All right, Carol.
Okay, so I went on record at last meeting saying that I wanted to fully fund the police and fire, and I still maintain that. Travis, is the $9,800 going to do anything to your maintenance account? We're talking about small numbers now, but I purposely just worked with police and fire because I wanted to fully fund them. There's 3 small items here, which I'm surprised that there's not more, because you had a lot of money cut out of yours, 200,000, I believe. So I'm surprised that it's such a small amount.
Yeah,
Sorry, Travis.
And I should have stayed up there.
I think it was just shy of 10,000 that we had cut out of maintenance. Certainly, it will assist us in any way possible to get some funding back into maintenance. Is it gonna keep a truck on the road? I can't tell you at this moment in time. It's a possibility. It could keep a truck on the road. Maybe it's not enough. I don't know. Unfortunately, it's the simple fact of things. And I'm not saying these 2 pieces of equipment that I spoke of earlier are definitely going down. We're gonna do everything we can to try to get them up and keep them running the best of our ability. $10,000 is certainly gonna assist the department. We cut somewhere around a little better than 23% of our budget, which was to the over $200,000 from our budget. A lot of that being
The barriers.
guardrail and unfunded state mandates. We did get some quotes for the guardrails recently. I don't recall off the top of my head, to the sum of around $40,000 for the 2 sections of guardrail. the unfunded mandate stuff, it is what it is. I mean, they're not finding towns that I'm aware of at this moment in time, but, you know, to have $10,000 that we cut from our maintenance budget, especially realizing that some of the equipment we have is in worse shape than we were thinking originally, I think it would be beneficial, absolutely.
To have it in, okay. And then the asphalt, 12,000, would we be able to use the road stabilization fund to assist with that, or not?
I mean, that funding would all be for small patches, right? That's typically what we use that for. If we have a trench that settles, we would try to cut it out and repair the trench work. Things like that, utilizing it for paving around manhole structures or catch basin structures that have collapsed and we've had to rebuild. I mean, I don't know. I would ask you folks if I could use that road stabilization funds for that type of stuff. You know, you're not talking about rebuilding roads, we're just talking about small patches here and there. But when you do 50, 60, 100 of them a year, not that that's every year, but, you know, some years we have a lot of patching we're doing, and all adds up.
And I know, I'm not picking on DPW, or I'm just trying to make everybody aware, these small amounts, what they mean to you.
I mean, frankly, I would have asked for a much larger sum in our maintenance budget had I been aware of the repairs that I am now aware of that need to be made to some of this equipment. So we're trying to bang our heads against the wall, myself and my two mechanics, to come up with some ideas to put before the select board, the capital committee, finance committee, to try to get some of our equipment either replaced or repaired with some of the other equipment we have. And I don't even want to speak about it at this moment in time, but I will be bringing that information to you folks at some point in time, hopefully in the near future.
Travis and I have talked about a few options on
Yeah.
how to come up with some funding for some of that.
So we do have some smaller pieces of equipment that currently aren't getting used, so we're thinking maybe if we could offset the cost or cover the cost by selling or putting up to auction some of that equipment. If it could go back to the department, maybe we could replace one of these smaller trucks before the winter season starts. I don't know yet.
I know, I don't want to put you on the
Let us
spot for
try to
that.
put
Yeah,
some
exactly.
figures together to present to you, but, you know, ultimately, any funding we could put back into maintenance would be extremely beneficial to our department.
And would you prefer to have more money in the maintenance rather than having Sunday burials, weekend burials, because...
So right now, we've already utilized almost 25% of our overtime budget for the year, and we haven't finished the first month of the year. What do we say? What do I say to you? You know what
You
I'm
just
saying?
said it.
So you need it then?
Yeah. We would be thrilled to take anything and everything that we could get back into our budget. You know, it was an extremely large cut, and it's gonna be very difficult for us to do what we need to do throughout the year. And unfortunately, there's gonna be a lot of me saying no to a lot of people this year because of these cuts.
Travis, off point a little bit from tonight, but can you dollarize the replacement of the dump truck and the replacement of the Freightliner?
For the Freightliner, don't quote me, I want to say when we purchased that, all set up the way it is, yeah, it was somewhere around $240,000. We have been, again, trying to look into some better alternatives for our department, at least short term, right? So my mechanics started looking into some used equipment, some multi-purpose equipment. So again, I don't want to speak about it too much at this moment in time. I will bring it before you folks at some point in the near future when we do have all those figures together.
In the dump truck, which is the more critical one, isn't that about 175, 76,000?
Don't quote me because I haven't gotten an updated quote since last fall, I believe. Just to replace the truck, we're probably looking around 150, 160,000. That's not outfitting it for winter with a sander body or a sander insert and plows.
And last question, that which is being proposed up here, none of it addresses stormwater.
None of it addresses stormwater.
So what's your comment to that, or?
Our biggest, in my professional opinion, our biggest issue right now with stormwater isn't the unfunded mandates, it's the failing infrastructure that's throughout town. I think in the past month, we've had 3 catch basins that we've had issues with that we've worked on, or we've had to do, or we're planning on working on in the near future. Unfortunately, this is what we're starting to see on the regular throughout the years in my time here. Catch basins are basically falling apart. They're deteriorating because of age, because of the salt that gets put in the road, for many reasons. So, again, that's, in my opinion, is our biggest issue when it comes to stormwater. The unfunded mandates are certainly important. It's something that's going to protect our waterways with what they're looking for us to do with the retrofits. It's going to protect anybody that has a shallow well in the vicinity of those waterways or downstream from where those waterways enter. It is very important, but our failing infrastructure is more important, in my opinion. Not that I want to take away from anybody's health or anything of that nature. If you're talking infiltration into a shallow well, certainly that takes priority over anything when it comes to stormwater to me. Did I answer your question, sir? Nothing else?
Thank you, Travis.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Travis.
Travis.
Carol, did you have anything further?
So, having listened to Travis, I still maintain I want to fully fund the police, fire, and the DPW, and my only other suggestions were the town clerk's assistant and the treasurer collector's assistant, because it's personnel that's affected. The 995 for ARPA, where was that coming from? Because I pulled up the sheet, and most of that was assistance to households.
Yeah, that would be assistance to households and the 235 for the town signs. It's a combination of the two.
And I went on record last week saying that I didn't want to pull from the household to assistance because we had the assessor here advocating for it as well, because she herself and the executive assistant work with that fund. So I'm opposed to using that, to be honest. And then the unemployment, I personally would like to use the full amount, 68,604. I don't think we're going to be using it for unemployment, and I know you said we'd use it as an internal transfer for the comings and goings, but it's sat there and people aren't going to be claiming employment. They're already walking out and getting other jobs. So I'd like to bring that back on the table for the 68,000.
What did you say about the ARPA, Carol? Were you saying keep that number or to reduce that number?
No, don't use it, because I'd already said.
Okay, so you don't want to use that
I keep going
number at
backwards
all?
and forth.
Okay.
Again, I'm already getting pulled up for contradicting myself, so I don't want to contradict myself again by saying that I want to use that when last week I said I didn't want to use it.
Okay.
So,
Could I add to that? Is good intentions notwithstanding, is taking from assistance from household a best first choice?
that's all what's left.
The only reason the number was there, Mark, is because when asked how much is available in ARPA, there's only really 2 funds that you could touch at that point that aren't encumbered, and that is the assistance to households number, which needs to have some way of either contracting it or doing something more permanent with it, because anything left we would lose on December 31st if not. And then the second number is that $235 that's left over from the meeting signs, with the project being complete.
I'd also like to hear from the police chief to see if he's okay with using gift money.
So I talked to the police chief a couple hours ago. He wasn't able to be here tonight. He has a personal obligation. And he was okay with using those funds. He doesn't love it. It's not something, would like to get in the habit of, but he understands the importance of the situation and where we currently are and the need to put things back. That being said, I think we have Lieutenant is here as well, so I don't know if Lieutenant or the Sergeant want to speak on it, but.
Do you want to?
As far as the gift funds,
Yep.
we're not gonna comment on that.
Come on
actually.
up. Sorry, Guy. Don't want anybody to miss your comments.
Relax, they're up.
Just introduce yourself.
Lieutenant Guy Bebo, Paxton PD. As far as the gift funds, I talked to the chief, and he would like to be the one to discuss that with you when the time comes, as far as what he's gonna
Okay.
hand over.
So it's not clear cut. So it's not clear cut.
It's not, he would
It's
like,
not-
he would like to discuss that with you, that's what he wanted me to pass on.
All right. Thank you, Guy.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Okay. Anything further, Carol?
So I think we haven't got too long to post the meeting. It's a 14-day posting. I think we need to start moving on this pretty fast and come to a consensus and find. Nobody wants to use operating stabilisation. I don't. I said that again last week, but there's no money, and it's really we're pulling at small amounts where there's not money to be had, to be honest. All of this is not available, really. We're just making a bigger hole for ourselves, but the problem was the override failed twice, and that's why we're in this position. So we've got to come up with what we want to support and how we want to fund it pretty soon.
Yeah. So I want to make a comment, as we're looking at the things we want to fund, I think it's important that we keep in mind that if we are going to stabilization to fund this, that is really should be considered an emergency measure. And so whatever you're funding with it should be considered an emergency need, in my opinion. I also think that, we need to fund things that are currently existent and not what ifs, right? So my concern with things like vehicle maintenance is that, some of that is to fix things that break. Well, we have the reserve fund. And this year, we're in a position that maybe we need to rely on the reserve fund for things that break. And maybe we shouldn't be funding those things out of stabilization. So, just a thought.
Does that go for the fire as well, or just?
I mean,
DPW?
potentially, right? Because you take that $10,000 and that fire portion of the budget is being funded out of the ambulance receipts as opposed to out of the stabilization, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, maybe you leave that in ambulance receipts for now. We do have another special town meeting coming up, so if something were to change,
Yeah.
we could consider appropriating some more, but, that's part of my concern here. I think we need to be looking at what's really an emergency.
Would you put training for the police in that as well?
Well, the problem with training is it's mandated. They can't maintain their certification if they don't get it.
This is just me really thinking outside the box for the maintenance for the DPW. If those pieces of equipment do any work in the cemetery, is there any way to use that cemetery fund? Is that considered something that, just getting creative?
Not the bigger pieces.
If you take a truck and it does work in the cemetery, would that count towards?
Perpetual care.
Where to move your chair?
Just that, it's because it's just, we're down to,
We're digging at brass tacks right now.
Yeah.
Last year, Heather and I spent an extremely large amount of time dwindling all of our budgets down to as tight as we could possibly get. And that cemetery budget, I think if we cut $50 out of it, we'd be underfunded there. I mean, there's no money. it's very little money in the cemetery budget.
I think you're missing my question is, if you have a piece of equipment that does work in the cemetery, can you use the sale of cemetery plots to work on, maintain that equipment?
I'm not certain of the law when it comes to perpetual care funds, so that's something I would have to look into. I don't want to give you misinformation,
No,
that's all.
I appreciate it.
And certainly, we have a 1-ton and a backhoe that does maintenance in there.
Right.
But that's pretty much it.
Yep.
I'm not certain of the law when it comes to the perpetual care funds and exactly what it can be used for all the time, so I don't want to give you false information.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Travis, can we just stay with that for a minute? Because I think there's a question and then there's an answer to another fund. There's two funds. One is the perpetual care fund,
Yep,
which only has about $7,000 in it.
okay.
The other is the sale of cemetery lots that has a balance of $105,000.
Okay.
What can that sale of cemetery lots be used for, if anything?
I believe that that's all supposed to head towards perpetual care eventually. I don't want to give you false information again because I'm not certain of it. So if one of the cemetery board commissioner members was here, I would be happy to have them come up and speak on it. I'm not extremely familiar with the rules and the laws when it comes to those two personal accounts. I know there's some tricky information that's in there with how they're spent.
So it's only $6,000, so I don't want to make a bigger issue out of it than it should be. But the point I think Jeremy's making is, if you use a DPW truck and gas and oil and labor and et cetera to work on that, to give the cemetery the care,
Yep.
does this fund now kick in to reimburse DPW?
I think it's certainly something that should go before the Cemetery Board of Commissioners to vote on in the upcoming year for when we're putting together our cemetery budget, because I don't disagree with you. We did transfer a lot of funds from cemetery over to DPW at the town administrator's recommendation last year, because we're the same department doing the same work. So I don't disagree with you. You know, that there's an opportunity that possibly the cemetery commission could raise the rates a little bit higher than projected previously for the sale of lots, for the burial costs, which could bring in a little bit more money for the cemetery department. Unfortunately, that's not up to me. That's up to the Cemetery Board of Commissioners. So I certainly think it's worth mentioning to the commissioners.
So according to Donna Kuchar's email from October 27th, 2023, last time this question was asked, appropriations can be made from the sale of lot account according to Mass General Laws 114, Section 25. Direct expenses cannot be spent from the Special Revenue Fund. Only an appropriation for the care, improvements, and embellishments of the cemetery, and the commissioners would have to vote on that.
So it's really at the discretion of the commissioners, assuming that, care of the cemetery sounds to me pretty broad, but it's up to the discretion of the commissioners.
That's my understanding.
Travis, can you or Heather speak to road stabilization fund? What is the current amount and what can that be used for?
I'm sorry, what are you asking about, Steve?
The road stabilization.
Fund?
Oh, the road so each year we appropriate, each year annual town meeting, it gets captured as part of the tax levy up top, because once it was voted as a stabilization fund on the ballot. When a stabilization fund is voted on the ballot, it always stays as a separate amount of money. Each year it grows by 2.5%. I think last year was 118,000, this year was like 121,000, give or take, something like that. The balance this year, I think, was about 18,000 you guys had left that you didn't spend from FY '24, and that just rolls over to FY '25.
It stays within the fund.
Stays, yep.
So we use it strictly on rebuilding roads. So we're planning on milling 2 large sections of Marshall Street within the next month or 2, hopefully, depending on the availability of the subcontractors. And we're also hoping to do a full depth reclamation and paving of Route 56, roughly 6,000 feet of Route 56 from the Leicester line and towards 122. That's pretty much going to eat up the majority of our Chapter 90 funding and all of our road stabilization funds.
Thank you, Travis.
So we would have to, Heather, look at the ballot article, or the ballot language for the road stabilization fund when it went to ballot originally, to ensure that the use, if for Travis's point, he would like to be able to use the road stabilization fund for asphalt. We would just need to check that language to make sure that we were within the scope of the ballot question, correct?
Yeah, we just need to take a look at it. I'm trying to pull up. I thought there was specific language when the road stabilization pieces came out, because it was something a lot of the towns hopped on. So let's see what we can find for that. But just like Chapter 90 funds, right? Chapter 90 funds, you can buy anything road related. You can get approval for equipment and so forth. The problem that comes of that, if you start pulling from those funds to use smaller supplies or to take care of equipment and so forth, you're taking money away that's usually direly needed for the roads themselves.
All right. Any further comments from Finance or SB?
I have none.
I will open it up for a public comment, if that's all right with you, Mark. See if there's any public
Good
comment.
idea.
Neil, go ahead.
Okay. A couple of things. I guess the first question I have is for finance. So the reduced service, let me back up. The budget for FY '24, can you just give me a round number? Was it $7.5 million, whatever it was?
You're talking
The budget that
town-only
just
services?
No,
and-
the whole budget for the town minus the school was.
Okay.
I'm gonna 7.6, 7.5.
Give me 30 seconds.
Okay.
7.6 approved.
I'm sorry, 7.
7.6 was approved at town meeting, and then there was an additional.
That was in FY '20 for the budget we just finished.
Yep, 7,639,942.
And what is the total right now for the reduced services budget?
7,489,216.
7.4. All right, Mr. Calculator Man, there, 0.2%. What's that drop? 7.6 to 7.4, 200,000 on 7.4. Come on, get your calculator out.
150,726.
All right, so, no, but percentage-wise.
Oh, now you want that answer too.
That's the one I want.
Two percent.
2%. Okay, so the reduced service budget is 2% less than the service budget we just completed in June 31st of '24.
For the town side, yeah.
All right, so I'm kind of taken aback here a bit that this town, and I realize we're all talking about crisis and this and that, but the 2% is going to put this in the tailspin that we're in. I've heard in the last month or 3 weeks of being here at meetings that what we can't do, we don't have this, we don't have that, we can't do this, whatever. But at one of the meetings, I think last week, someone asked, I don't want to hear any longer what you can't do. I want to hear what we have to do or what you must do. So for 2%, I just find that that's just a minuscule amount. If it was 15% or 10% or whatever, then I think we're more in a crisis. That's coming as a taxpayer. As a member of capital improvement, I have a couple of questions. It was not mentioned tonight that the town received a new dump truck sometime last year. I think it came in April or May or whatever there, to replace one of the older trucks. And I'm concerned that we're not bringing out what I'm going to say, the positives to what we're doing here. And to hear a statement made tonight that 25% of my overtime budget is gone in July, we're 3 weeks into the new year, that leaves 47, 48 weeks left. That what kind of overtime budget did we plan for? I'm sitting here just amazed at some of these numbers. I would like to follow up on the option discussions that we had before. When Chief Savasta spoke, I believe he was mentioning $64,139 per patrolman, and tonight I see it as $76,639. I'm assuming that's because you put back the unemployment for the 2 officers at 12.5, so that was really the true number. Okay, just so I understood that. And the same thing with the part-time administrative assistant, went from 11.5 to 17.5. Okay. When we're out, Travis, if I can ask you, maybe you want to come up, I don't know, but when you're telling me that you've had to rebuild catch basins this year, and again, we're 3.5 weeks into this, in a typical work week, I know you have jobs mapped out for everybody to do, and this is over and above what they were standardly doing during their normal day, or to rebuild a catch basin, I'm assuming the labor is the same. It's the materials that you have to acquire to rebuild those 3 catch basins.
Certainly. So the labor cost, we're paying our staff, whether they're out fixing basins, paving
Okay.
patches, or they're string trimming in the cemetery.
Okay. So,
So can I just hand out a little something here?
yes, that would be great.
Okay, because you brought up the overtime budget. I did make some copies of this. So this, I'll wait till I get back up there, and I'll give you one as well.
Hey, thank you, make sure the select board gets one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Travis.
The thing I'm, I guess, following up on is when you say 25% of the overtime budget is gone, we're 3.5 weeks into the year. That just didn't calculate for me.
Yep. So for our typical DPW, not snow and ice work, we had to make cuts somewheres, right? So this sheet that I just gave you, we ended up cutting 23.141% from our budget, and we're just shy of 6% from FY24, which was approved. Okay, so we ended up having to cut $223,010 out of a requested for $963,685, bringing our requested for budget of $963,685 down to $740,675, which was $47,097 less than what we were approved for in FY24. Okay, so you're talking almost $50,000 less than what we were approved for. We had to cut this $223,010 from somewheres. I was doing everything we could not to have to lay our staff off. So we took out the unfunded mandates. We removed, and you'll see a layout here. We removed, starting right at the top, employee wages. We cut that by 3%. That's what we cut our overtime budget by, okay? The 2 call-outs that we've had thus far this year, which ate up I don't want to give you misinformation, which ate up 26% of our overtime line item thus far already this year. We're both on Sundays, which we're obligated to pay our staff
Time and a half.
double time according to contracts. And it was for trees down that were blocking roadways. It's a hazard. That's not as though that was a coyote on the side of the road that got hit by a car and we had to go get it, okay? So we cut 3% of our employee wages, 3% across the board from overtime line items. Our equipment maintenance line item, we cut it by 12%. The garage building maintenance, we cut it by 40%. We cut our police details by 50%. We eliminated line painting. That was a 100% reduction. We pretty nearly eliminated guardrails, which was a 97% reduction. We eliminated renting any equipment to do any work above and beyond our typical jobs. we cut our signs and posts by 90%.
Okay, all right.
We-
Just, I understand,
Well,
I
okay,
understand
I'm
where you're
just-
going, but wait, this
You're
is,
questioning, so we did everything we could to not have to lay our staff off so that we could continue to be able to maintain roads to the best of our ability, be able to plow snow to the best of our ability, be able to maintain the distribution system to the best of our ability, as well as the cemetery and Parks and Recs fields.
okay, but this is not a cross-examination of the DPW, so please don't take it that way. I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around, if we had an FY '24 budget that was approved, and it was roughly 7.6, and then everybody puts in for the request that they're looking for, even those requests when they came in, I don't believe they were ever approved or accepted because the town voted no on the override, the first request. So you're telling me and this is just your department, I'm not singling you out, but thank you for being here tonight. Please, this is not a cross-examination
Sure.
of your department. But you're telling me you've cut $200,000, but 7.6 to 7.4 is 200 grand. I mean, the police cut, the fire cut, and whatever. Is it a cut from what you were requesting that maybe was never approved? So if we're looking at a 2% decrease, and we need to have some sort of increases to payroll and things like that, if we looked at another 2%, that 7.6 would become maybe 7.75?
Correct, so it was a 23.14% reduction from what we requested for
Correct, but it was
FY
never-
'25. It was a 5.979% reduction from what was approved in FY '24.
Okay,
So we
so
took
five-
almost a 6% reduction
All right, so-
from what we had approved
All
in
right.
FY '24.
All right, hang on, just hang. So where I'm going with this, what was the police cut from FY '24 to reduce services, and what was the fire cut from FY '24 to reduce services, percentage-wise? And that's the number that's where I was trying to get to, 5%. So thank you very much for that.
Just
Heather,
shy
or
of 6% is where we're.
6%.
5.6%.
No, 5.97.
I'm sorry,
6%.
6%.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll round up here.
From,
Wait,
but
no.
No,
wait
you're
a
talking about, he's
Yeah.
talking about different things.
take
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 FY
the
'24.
request out of it and just go with what was approved for last year versus what was approved in the reduced services budget.
Yes, 22%. So 1.2 million was approved in FY '24 for police, and it was funded at 952, which was a 22% decrease. I don't have the fire's numbers as readily available.
All right, something's not adding up here.
Well, you're talking about can I just explain? You're talking about a 2% decrease over FY '24 of an old budget. We had to take the big cuts from the big departments. We didn't take 2%, wait a minute,
Across the
Neil.
board.
We didn't take 2% from Worcester County Retirement or 2% from health insurance or anything else that we had to mandate. We took 25% almost from each of the big departments.
Right. And with all due respect, Heather has explained this, I don't know,
Several
20 times. So ultimately, there's a whole budget, right? And there is a number of things that are non-discretionary items because they're contractually obligated. And then there's only a small percent of the budget that is
Can be cut.
discretionary, right? That can be cut. And once you get beyond, and if I remember correctly, that amount was really 160,000 or something, that discretionary item. And then once we start making cuts beyond that point, now we're looking at having to compare the accounts in terms of all of the departments and figure out, okay, if I take this amount from this department, is that going to actually decimate the department? So say, for instance, the town accountant, right? All you have is one person's salary in there. You can't reduce that, right? So, or else you're reducing the person, and then she can't get the job done, and we can't get the finances balanced for the town, and that would be problematic. So we have those sort of non-discretionary items or those contractually obligated items that can't be reduced. Beyond that, so we make the little cuts that we can through the smaller departments, but then you have the larger departments that make up the larger percentage of the budget, and that's where the cuts fall, right? It's just the natural progression when you're dealing with such a large cut that it has to come from the larger departments because they have more areas that can be cut, which is unfortunate, right? Especially with police, you're looking at a situation where once you make those cuts, now you're looking at people And once you cut that deeply, right, when you look at police and fire in particular, those two departments are heavily dependent on personnel. Their budgets are made up of more than 90% just the salaries of personnel. And so as soon as you start cutting those budgets to that extent, you're cutting people. There's nowhere else to cut. And so that's why we're in the situation that we're in, right?
DPW is probably the smallest people-wise department.
All right,
we
that's
have.
fine. He just happened to be
But
here
the
tonight, but
most
if I can just
equipment-
follow
Of
up
the
on
three-
that.
Requirement.
Yeah.
Like, the DPW can't do their work without the equipment they need to do the work, which
Of-
doesn't come cheap.
Right.
And to give you a dollar figure, Neil, from a reduction in from FY '24 to FY '25 was $47,097 is the reduction to the DPW budgetary-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, but-
And the police was over
Wait,
100,000.
no, it was 300 grand. Heather, you said it was 1.2 requested, and it was passed at 9-something.
952, I think you said.
And now we're trying to put back
Yes.
246, but does that get us to FY '24, or are we
I think
still
that's
short?
still lower than FY '24.
That's still lower than FY '24.
And the reason he's used 25% of his overtime budget is because you only
No,
had
wait, I've just,
$4,000 in there.
I've switched
And also-
departments now, hang on.
Now you're talking about the police. Now
That's- I'm-
the police had four patrolmen down with the new budget. They're only going to replace 2. With the money that we want to reinstate of 241,000, they're only getting 2. They're not getting 4. So that's why their budget is less than FY '24. It's because we're not fully funding what they actually want. And when
By
when they put an FY '25 budget
grand.
request in, it's not a wish list. It's what they
No.
need to the job.
I'm trying to get to that point. It was asked before, what does it take to return to fiscal '24 service levels? That's where I'm trying to get to. And we've had all kinds of numbers thrown around here, and options 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But it looks like the number tonight is roughly 250 grand for police. Is that correct? 241, 216, and 216 and...
241.
241,
241 doesn't
094.
restore everything. 241 is just to get 2 police officers.
But wait,
Not
Carol,
4.
but that would put us back to January levels because Chief Savassa said he stopped interviewing because he wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Correct.
So the town has managed to
With overtime.
protect.
With overtime.
But I'm saying with the number of officers, there were 13 officers, he told me at the last meeting, 5 of which were at Anna Maria, and 7 or 8 were here, and 1 is leaving August 6th. If I'm just trying to remember
Yeah.
the information. So at 241, we could be back to where we were as of January 1st, '24, which was 6 months into the fiscal year. Am I getting a nod yes,
No.
or maybe we need to discuss this more? We need to have more than that?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's what it would get us, because he was working 2 officers down, and he would still be 2 officers down.
Okay, but what I'm saying is he was able to provide services to the town for the last 6.5 months at those levels. Or am I missing something? Again, I'm just,
Mark's not here to answer for that, but that's my understanding. Maybe Guy is able to speak to it?
I don't want to put you on the spot, sir, but I mean, does that appear to be a correct assessment? Or
So even with the restoration of the amount we were looking for now, his budget will still be 100,000 down than what he requested.
So I think the question is really around personnel.
All right, yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot, I'm sorry. But what I'm saying, Carol, is if it was $100,000 down, is that because we didn't have those 2 officers for 6 months? So FY '24 would have been a little bit less, and that 241 gets us to where we were.
I believe that
I don't agree there. The appropriation for FY '24 for police was 1 million. It was still less than what we're going to restore. this is what the information I was looking for before. So, police requested. All right.
All right, just move the question, go on.
All right. Any other comments from anybody else in the public? Chuck, go ahead. Just get a
you get the
microphone
answer?
and introduce yourself.
Neil, give Chuck the microphone, please. All right, you got one?
Test.
Yeah.
I was concerned to see the library number disappear, because I do think that's an important number in terms of, you talk about emergency situations. I think losing certification is a big deal. And by cutting, I know Tony had made a point where he's not sure without losing that what else that entails. I do know that we lose other funding because of that, because I'm gonna pass this as library trustee here. I'll let him.
Hi, yeah, just to speak to that.
Just introduce yourself.
Oh, Karen
Sorry.
Putney. I'm a library trustee. So there are ramifications to services, which I think everybody's aware of if we lose library certification. But there are also financial impacts right away. Just applying for a waiver, our state aid, which we'd be eligible for if we were able to get certification, is down by 12%. So right away we lose, just applying for the waiver, we lose some funding, or potential funding. And then if we don't get the certification, we're then not eligible for the state aid, which is about $16,000 a year. 13,000. Thank you. 13,000 a year. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but that would be $13,000. It's almost like 26,000 in a way, because it's not only 13,000 we wouldn't be getting. It would be 13,000 we'd be looking for, taking money from elsewhere to cover that. So, and then there are ramifications for applying for waivers a second year and beyond, and there's a cap. So there are financial impacts beyond just the services as well.
Yes. And it's also, once you lose certification, it's also very difficult to get it back. So that's my concern with not funding the library. That 9,300 for the library actually is, we lose a much higher number than that.
Potentially. Right.
No, not potentially.
You're
So
guaranteed
not
we're gonna lose
certification, this
certification?
isn't in terms of getting the waiver.
Yeah.
But once we apply for the waiver, we lose out on that state funding. Is that correct?
Just 12%.
12% of the state funding.
If we don't get the waiver, then
It's on yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. Peter, did you have a comment?
I have a question for the library trustee, Peter Bogren, 5 Bergman Circle. When I served on the select board, one of the things I was told many times over by our former finance committee chair was that the library waiver would not be an issue as long as the cuts to the library were in line with cuts to other major departments within the town. How much was the library budget from FY24 to FY25? What is the percentage cut there? Could someone tell me that?
Heather?
What was the last part, Peter?
Sure.
Percentage
What
cut
was,
on?
what was the percent cut in the library budget from
specifically.
FY24 to FY25, the reduced services?
Sure, let me just pull it up.
Tim.
It was 202,806.
It's the first one in red.
Yeah,
Is that
Scroll
up or
down.
down?
43.
Scroll down. Yep. Red.
Keep going.
Bingo.
I love my color coding, huh?
6%.
So our library's cut 6%, our police department 22%, and DPW and fire, and of course, are all in line. So I would think that unless the rules have changed with the library certification, we're certainly, we're cutting that department much less than our other essential service departments. So have the rules changed then, I guess is my question for the certification process.
This is Karen Putney again. So as far as I know, that is certainly looked at. If the library is cut at a higher percentage than other departments, that is certainly a factor. And I think we're hoping and hopeful that the waiver will go through. There is no guarantee, is my understanding. There's no guarantee either way, just to say, oh, it was cut less. I don't think that guarantees that it's going to happen. I think there's a good chance the waiver will go through.
Joanna McGugan, I'm also a library trustee. So from what I understand, and Pam has all the nuances, she has all the information about this. She's the better resource probably. But from what I understand, if there's no guarantee to get a waiver. It's possible, and we're hopeful that it'll come through. But something to keep in mind going forward is that as we have to apply, if we can't bring the budget back up to the levels we need, we have to apply for a second year. Then the town, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, the town has to come up with a 5-year plan for resolving that budget. So it doesn't mean, we're guaranteed to have the certification. There's a cap on applying for the waiver for 5 years. So a waiver is a very short-term fix. Hopefully 1 year will be all we need to do that. But the other certification means loss of state aid. If that helps.
Okay.
Well, maybe we could get some clarification between now and we actually go to town meeting, so that it's only, when you're talking about $9,000, so I understand you wanting that, but I would still prefer some clarification as to whether a waiver would be sought and actually granted with the reductions that Peter's just mentioned, because that's exactly how I remember the waiver process being. And I do know that there's other things that the library has to have. They have to be there open for so many hours, and I'm pretty certain we're above those hours. So there's the other aspects to it. But I think with the small reduction of what we're talking about for the library, I think we should be fine. Definitely.
So Pam did just release a press release.
Yeah, I saw that.
A week or so ago. And it's actually, I don't even know where I'm at. It's on the website.
That was more on the source funding.
Yeah, so this one here
there was some
says,
discussion about getting money from the Friends, and that's not a viable source.
yeah, but it also says that the regulations under MGL state that a municipality must appropriate a figure of at least the average of the last 3 years' municipal appropriations to the library for operations increased by 2.5% or to be certified.
And like I say, it's only small money that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We can find the other money, I'm sure we could find the 9, but...
To your point, Carol, yes, we are planning to apply for the waiver in August. Pam has that on her agenda.
Go ahead, Pierre.
Thanks. I just want to say that I share Mr. Love's reluctance to dip into stabilization. Our auditor has told us in the past that our stabilization should be upwards to 10% of our operating budget, which means we should be somewhere around 1.5, not 300 something. However, his point to dip into free cash for next year and not touch stabilization, I think Carol's right. If we take it out of stabilization now and then reallocate it in our special town meeting later, we've accomplished what Mr. Love was looking for. I think your plan is excellent. I appreciate the thought that you've put into it in light of the failed overrides, and I'd like to see you guys just get this done. Vote it, get it done. It's $338,000. It gets us through another year, and we'll go at it again next year. But it's time to put this thing to bed. We got the public safety that we were looking for. I appreciate your effort in that. So it might be time to wrap things up and get it done.
So Peter, you and I are on the same page, because what I'd like to do at this point is start moving things to votes. So what I think we may need to do for the gray box, as we're, I think, affectionately calling it for tonight, is potentially vote for items as opposed to the box in total. So I'd be looking, I think, for motions with regard to individual items in that box as in order to demonstrate that we want to fund that item, and then we can move on to the green box in terms of deciding what funding sources we're going to use once we come to a total of what we're going to fund. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. Are we doing that with the finance first and then the select board second?
I
Yeah.
think they should, yeah.
'Cause that's why.
We need to do it at the
Yeah.
line item level or kind of the subtotal level?
So, I think needs to be up to the person making the motion, right? But I think that moving the entire box is probably not what we want to do. I think we need to give people a little bit more choice than that. So, so my suggestion is that motions get made for maybe the subtotal.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was
items.
saying, was the subtotal.
Yeah,
I thought you were
yep.
saying line items, like each officer.
Yeah, I mean, you could get that granular if you felt you needed to on any particular point, but I think subtotal items is perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to, we can do each at a time. I'm fine with it. So, finance, if you want to start on your end and move what things you want to fund.
I think, Julia, the the hesitation, at least mine is notwithstanding Peter Bogren's good point of let's move. I think going down this one by one is going to be very difficult. That's point one. Point two is we've had a number of meetings and maybe they all run into to each other, but I recall at one meeting when we were going through something similar to this, the takeaway was, as painful as this is, sometimes having to cut a budget and live with that budget going forward is actually a good exercise. And we've done none of that with respect to that first column. We've just cut it, and now people have raised concerns, legitimate concerns for sure, and we've just added it back. And at the same time, we're depleting the stabilization, which I think is a dangerous situation, because we're not going to be able to replace that truck, that dump truck or anything. We're not going to really be able to do anything. Peter just raised a good point. We're going to be at $179,000. We should be at $1,179,000, and we're going in the wrong direction.
For sure.
And in my first impression, when I sat down and looked at this within the first 2 minutes, I thought 348 was too high, and I still do. So one of my thoughts, which is going to protract it, which I apologize for doing that, is to say, let's pick a number this evening, whether it's 350 or 325 or 300, which I'm going lower than 348, and asked Heather to meet with the department heads and come back and say, okay, you got 300,000, you tell us how you want to use it. And then have another quick meeting and vote on that. Otherwise, we have 6 members of the Finance Committee. Some may be in favor of the library, some may not. Some may be in favor of weekend burials, some may not. I just think that that's going to be an interesting exercise, but a painful one and a difficult one to end up getting to a particular number. So my recommendation is pick a bottom line number and let's meet in another week and say, okay, this is what we've come up with for 300 grand.
So, Mark, the problem with that is we have to have the town meeting posted by the 5th of August,
Which is next week.
which is next Monday.
Everybody is here. I think we have all the information available to us right now. The other thing is I don't think it makes sense to pick a bottom line without associating a meeting with that number. So you need to have, that's what we've intended to do by presenting these options, is now you have a meeting behind each of these numbers. And so you build what you want. You have that, all the information is right here.
Hey, Julia, just while because maybe it's more palatable than we think, because as you've been adjusting, the amount needed says 317, but the amount funded is at 353. Did we?
Heather, what did you adjust?
Yes, what you done?
Library and recreation around that.
Yeah, I've been adjusting live. If
So does
you
that
notice
mean the
down below,
amount
it's
funded's
830.
coming down then?
The vehicle maintenance out of fire has been struck.
Yeah,
Equipment maintenance out of DPW was struck.
But does that mean we can
So-
drop what's coming out of stabilization then by?
we could. Also keep in mind that the difference, Mark, between this tonight and last week was we were looking at about 30,500 unemployment. This week, we're looking at 68,604. So the number is still higher, the amount of unemployment put towards this. But yes, so if you go back here, so here was the original version tonight. Here was the first edits with library, rec, and economic taken out of it. Here was the second edit with equipment maintenance and vehicle maintenance, and then this is the same thing. I can go to whichever version. I just kept adding a new one in case I have to go back.
Okay.
Is someone here from fire to speak to what is the ramification of $10,000 being struck from vehicle maintenance?
But that was being covered by ambulance receipts anyway.
Yeah, that can just be reappropriated.
Well, before we do that, let me leave my point. 317 is better than 348. So my point's being made, I guess.
But that's the idea of voting the
Right.
things individually, right? So that we can look at what we actually want to use stabilization money on. Go ahead, Mike.
Good evening. A lot of familiar faces here tonight. Thanks for coming back. I guess I attract everybody back to this room. That's fantastic. Mike Pidgeottori, Paxton Fire Chief. To your point, Steve, yes, the 10,000, it's going to hurt, but we can make it work. I can make a lot of things work right now. I just like to get the bodies back and moving forward to protecting this town. Like I said last week, I don't know if you were here or not, Steve, but I quite enjoy seeing Mark and Neil. Bill's not here tonight at Capitol, and again, seeing you guys to come back to the reserve. I may have to do that with the vehicle maintenance thing, but I think that's something that we're all going to have to face this year. I know Travis and I do work closely together with vehicle maintenance right now, kind of pooling our resources to get the bigger trucks taken care of. So it presents a challenge, but I think we can overcome it if we can, make this thing work and move forward.
Okay, so you're going on record and telling us that you can make it work, and if you need to, in some case of emergency, you'll come back to us.
Yes, absolutely.
Relative to reserve, but otherwise, you're fine with that 10,000 being struck.
Yep.
Okay. Second question. Thank you, Mark.
No problem.
Travis, you don't have to come up. You talked about $12,000 or 10, was it 12,000?
12 for asphalt.
No, 10,000 was, what did we have in
Maintenance
maintenance?
was around
9,860.
Yeah.
10 grand.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said you could use all of it, correct?
Correct.
All right. So we're now at 337, is that correct?
No, because the fire's still in there.
I understand, okay, strike fire, because Chief just went on record in saying vehicle maintenance can go, okay, we're now at 37,
Okay, thank
There you go,
there we go, thank you.
325.
327, okay. Now, what was that number originally?
349.
349, 7.
349, 755.
Okay. So the only thing I see wrong with this, because everybody's gone on record, is saying that which is presented to Peter's point, let's just get it done. Gray box is 327, 463. The funding sources are the same number. The only question becomes one of the chief, Mark wants to have an offline conversation with the select board about the 14.9 for police gifts, correct? That's the only thing left in question? Correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So it seems to me we're at a point where we can vote, or at least get a consensus of agreement on 327, 463. Or am I missing something?
You're not missing anything.
I don't think you're missing anything.
I would propose for consideration the police, 69,917. Reducing that by $17,000 to bring the total to $310,000.
And what does the 17,000 represent?
Training.
Patrol-related expenses, it's just,
You don't know.
I'm just bringing the $69,000 down to 52 with the idea that it's not 69, well, let's make do with a little bit less in order to move this thing forward.
See, the problem with doing things like that is that you have a situation where we don't know from the department head what that money means to them. And what we heard from Mark Savasta the last time was that we had a situation where we had cut him down to just the gas without understanding what that other cut represented to him. And that other cut was the other things that he needs in order to actually be able to patrol. And so if you are,
This listed. So this will break down.
Thank you.
If you wanted to know, yes, you just put it up. It's got everything, what the patrol expenses are, what the training's for, and
Yeah.
how much it breaks it down, so. I
right,
get
so
what you're saying.
there you go. So there it is. So, and part of it was that he couldn't do patrolling if he didn't have the overtime in order to put the people in that role. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Brief conversation with the police lieutenant up there about the trainings. Some of those trainings that that 17,000 is funding is see their normal annual CPR and first responder stuff. So I just talked to Heather real quick, and after seeing what we have left in ambulance receipts that rolled over, I'm fairly confident that we could probably add that from ambulance receipts and reduce the dependence on stabilization. So the 17.9.
So you're offering ambulance receipts
Yeah.
to the.
I wouldn't go much higher than that, just in a bad year, but
Yeah,
if that's something that's,
But we'd already we had yours covered.
not to
Yeah.
confuse the matter, but I think they do a lot of CPR for us before we get there, so I think it's a good expense from the EMS side.
okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Mike. Thank
So
you,
we're
Mike.
still at 327,463?
Yeah, just, you're gonna keep more in stabilization.
I just swapped out the funding source, so operating stabilization went down to 161,559, ambulance receipts went up to 82,400.
Okay.
And the third box, the funding balances, you've adjusted those based upon the operating stabilization such that, okay.
As long as my formulas are working, it should be live.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah, I guess the one statement I have, and maybe we can vote on it, but, I mean, if we're gonna keep the town clerk and the treasurer, so people come in, when they take days off, we don't close the office. I don't understand why we would also cut the library. If you wanna cut this other, we should take the $4,000 out. To me, I think we're playing with percentages of a penny right now is what we're doing. If you talk to an auditor and you tell them that you're supposed to have 1.4 million and you've gone from 185,000 to 17, that really will make no difference in their equations. So I'm kind of where Steve was and where Peter is, Julie, let's vote on this, but I just, I want people to realize that us moving around 20 grand, 15 grand, relative to an auditor looking at a stabilization fund that should be 1.4 million is not really making a difference.
And it's with Economic Development Committee, if you're cutting the $1,000 there, is that, what's the impact? Does that mean that, is that ceasing to exist? Or is that just they don't have money to do things?
So they don't have a budget they didn't have a budget
can
for
operate.
FY '24. Their goal was to have a budget for FY '25 to be able to.
They can
do
operate
some
without it.
things.
They can operate without it, yeah.
Okay. That's all I care.
I'd like to make a motion for the finance committee to vote on this.
I second.
On the,
Okay, so you have a
Should we be
motion
more
to vote,
specific?
but you need a motion for what you're voting on. Let's start with that.
go on, Ben.
I would like to make a motion to vote on the 336,755 as defined in each one of these line items,
Okay,
instead of having to go through each one of them.
okay.
And per Kurt, I second the motion.
Okay.
All right.
The
so
motion's
finance
been
and
made,
capital-
second's been made, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. I'm gonna have to take a roll call. Ben?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mark? No.
Okay. All
Select
right,
board.
so I will ask for the same motion, so that we can be consistent.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. So I'll say that that has passed both finance and select board. So we have a number now, which is that the right number now? Right there, 336,755 for what we're gonna hope to fund. And the funding sources, as we are looking at them now, we have police gifts in the amount of 14,900, the unemployment amount of 68,604, and I would suggest that those two items are not items that require a town meeting vote. What does require a town meeting vote would be transfer from operating stabilization in the amount of 178,51, as well as a appropriation from ambulance receipts reserved in the amount of 82,400, for a total appropriation of 253,251, and we'll need a warrant article to that effect, which we'll work on next.
Julia, for the unemployment as well.
Oh, we
Yeah,
would
the
need it for
unemployment,
unemployment, sorry.
Yep, it's part of the
So we'll
budget
need one for,
lines.
we'll have to add unemployment as a funding source for the, because that's, okay.
It's a
yeah.
transfer,
Changing,
it's fine.
changing your line items.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So, what are we looking at now then for number of warrant articles that will be needed based on that?
We're not gonna know until we talk to legal. It's gonna come down to whether or not they feel we can, if we can do everything in one article. I believe the operating stabilization requires a 2/3. If you put everything in the same article where something requires a
Yep.
2/3, everything
have to
will
be separate.
require a 2/3. And then it's just a matter of whether we can do it, because you're essentially, transferring from stabilization ambulance receipts, and then you're amending the budget below to reduce unemployment and to increase the other bottom lines. So
Okay.
we could do it, I would say, 1 or 2 articles.
Okay. So do you need us to open the warrant tonight?
So at this point, we're running out of time again. It seems like our theme, right? So
Yeah.
Carol stated earlier, August 5th, the latest, this should really be posted, not us meeting on it.
Yeah.
So it would need to be posted by the end of the week. We could do one of a couple things. The select board could decide, to give authorization for me to have this legal work with me to write those articles, and then you guys could be good with that. Or alternatively, we could post something maybe as a quick Zoom meeting and what day's today? Monday, by Thursday night,
That's what
just
I'm
to be
thinking.
able to make sure we finalize it.
Yeah.
Or Thursday, some point during the day.
Yeah, so I'm fine with that if you want.
I'm fine
We
with
can
that.
post a quick Zoom meeting when she has the actual idea of what we need for warrant articles, then we can open the warrant,
For when?
discuss the articles
Thursday.
It'll be
Thursday.
Thursday.
Let me just make sure I.
Thursday,
Good.
Friday, maybe could do it? I mean, is Friday too late, or do we need to do it by Thursday?
Really, you want to have it typed up and everything.
But we need to be able to get
anytime
it.
this week.
So I think Dawn is out on Friday and I'm out on Friday, so we're gonna have problems getting it to the constable on Friday,
Okay.
if we meet on Friday.
But what do we need to vote on? On just the
We
wording?
need to
of it?
open the warrant.
We need to open the warrant.
Vote on it,
Vote
and
on
then
the
close
warrant
it.
articles and then close the warrant.
Oh,
Yeah.
we can vote on opening the warrant.
We can certainly open the warrant today, but.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should kind of know what it
I
says
would,
before we
I would
open
wait,
it.
honestly, I would wait until we know what the warrant articles need to be, because we have to vote
Yeah.
on those anyway, so we might as well just do it all at once. I'm just looking at, I look like I'm available on Thursday.
I'm available.
So we could do that, we could hold a quick
Zoom meeting?
on Thursday,
Okay.
and,
In the evening or during the day?
Does finance want to have a meeting to vote on the articles as well, or?
I don't think they need.
Does,
or this
Mark,
board?
do you guys wanna hold a meeting the same time select board do as a joint meeting, or do you wanna just offer your recommendations on the article or articles at town meeting?
I think it would be more convenient to have a joint meeting.
Can you do it as a Zoom? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
With a
me.
Zoom link.
Yeah, yeah.
So what time?
You want to just shoot for, well, what time works? I can do any time on Thursday, honestly, so.
Maybe he's trying to think what my Thursday looks like.
What time is best for most of your people usually?
7.
7?
That's fine.
Tony and I are unavailable.
7?
Yeah, I don't think anything
Not
that I have going on will be after that.
Okay.
Could we do it earlier than 7? Does earlier
I'm
work
not
for you
a-
two?
I mean, I'm not.
Thursday for me, yeah, I'm on vacation this weekend.
I can, if you need me for a quorum, I'll figure out a way to zoom in.
I think we're talking about 5 minutes.
I'm not gonna have service. I'm gonna be somewhere where I can't do it.
Good for
Physically
you.
Cannot do it.
Lori, go ahead.
Can I go with you?
I can.
I'm just because Heather just mentioned that she and Donna are both out on Friday. How is this getting posted then?
That's why
Yeah,
we're
do it for
avoiding.
Thursday, Laurie.
It would be
But
Thursday.
if you're meeting Thursday night, it's not gonna get
Yeah,
posted.
exactly.
It would be better if it was earlier on Thursday.
today?
I mean, we could always work with the
Monday.
constable to
Monday.
connect with
We
them.
can't
To
do
be
Wednesday.
posted tomorrow night
Can't do
by 5
Wednesday.
o'clock.
Can we do
Well, we
Thursday.
should have plenty of time to post it for Thursday, right?
If they can get it in the constable's hand on Friday.
Oh, the warrant, the posting the
we do it
warrant, not
Wednesday?
posting the agenda.
I can
No.
meet
That's what we're
Wednesday
talking
evening.
about.
Can anybody
Yeah.
else?
Could we
meet
do it,
Wednesday?
could we do it Wednesday
We
evening?
haven't got
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
We haven't got 48 hours. We haven't got- Unless we do it
Oh.
10 o'clock at
Right,
night.
I just want
Go
to
ahead, Ben.
confirm, right, for us talking about the warrant, it's just, the warrant questions are really gonna be to fund via source A, B, C, or any ways necessary, right? Just like the way
Yes.
Yep.
we always have.
Right.
So it's really gonna be those dollar amounts that we just voted on today.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's really just all we would have to do is whether we recommend
Approval.
in front of the town meeting.
Correct.
I.e. supported by finance committee, I.e. supported by, okay.
Yep.
So that
Yes.
should be
Yeah.
a quick meeting.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
5 minutes
That's all.
tops.
We're not changing any numbers. We've voted on them tonight.
Right.
It should be less than a half an hour,
Should be less
more
than
like
10 minutes.
15 minutes.
Should be quick.
I'm thinking
Yep.
5.
5 minutes.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking 5.
hopefully,
What's the over-under?
Yep.
All right, so what works for most of FinCom on Wednesday? What time?
7.
7 o'clock would work for everyone for a 5-minute meeting?
So have a Zoom option as well.
Yes.
It would have to, I can only do Zoom
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
So
I can do Wednesday, so.
this Wednesday, how are we going to post the meeting?
Oh, you can't, no, it's too late to
Oh.
post the meeting on Wednesday.
You're right.
48 hours.
Can't post the.
Oh, never mind. We keep
Yeah.
trying.
so we're back to
We just-
Thursday
we said that ages ago.
early.
We said that.
So it would need to be Thursday early enough that we could get it into the constable's hands.
Can
Correct.
folks do around lunchtime for like
Can we
5
do-
minutes?
can
It
we
should be
do
quick.
Lunch on
Yep.
Thursday?
I could do.
Sure.
Yep.
So-
Who's bringing the pizza?
I say, so lunch will be provided, that's what I heard.
It's virtual, so yourself.
It's a
Virtual.
BYO lunch.
All right, so what
It's a
time on
virtual
Thursday,
lunch,
noon?
so-
Thursday noon?
12 noon, Mark?
12 noon on Thursday?
5 minutes.
once,
That's all we need
twice?
is 5 minutes.
We'll make it happen.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Okay.
Look how excited Ben is. He's getting pizza on Thursday.
He can hardly contain himself.
Exactly.
All right. So 12 noon on Thursday. We'll have our warrant articles ready to go. We'll open the warrant, vote on the articles, close the warrant, vote for recommendations, and we're off and running for town meeting on August 19th. I just want to say thank you to everybody who came tonight. You know, we had a fantastic joint meeting. There was a lot of great discussion. I appreciate the comments from the public. I really think that we all kind of work together to try and find a solution. Now, obviously, the caveat is that this isn't going to help us next year, but it does help us get through this year. And please remember, next year, when we start asking these questions again, what we went through this year. Thank you.
For sure.
Oh, we have a hand up from Sarah Ford. Go ahead, Sarah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I also just wanted to say thank you. You guys worked really hard tonight. Thank you for this.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. We still have a little bit more business on the select board side, but if finance.
Motion to adjourn the finance committee meeting.
Second?
Can we get a 2-minute?
Yeah,
Discussion?
take a break. We'll
None, all in
recess for
favor?
5.
Aye.
Opposed?
That's it.
And adjourned.
Oh. Back on my vacation. Yeah, right? Oh. Like I should be able to do noon. It'll be on the cell phone. I don't have Wi-Fi, so.
I'll do my best to remember to post it.
We have recess now? We have short recess now?
Yeah, short recess, please, Scott.
Hello, sir. See ya.
fun. Happy anniversary.
All right, thanks. So we are back on the record. It is now currently 9:03 PM, and we are continuing the Select Board meeting from Monday, for Monday, July 29th, 2024. We're still in the training room at the Public Safety Complex. We have just a few more things to get through following the joint meeting with Finance. We do have an executive session that's going to follow the regular meeting pursuant to, hang on, I'll get it in a second. Maybe? I don't have that. Oh, I don't think I see it on.
Mine was cut off.
Mine's cut off too. Well, we do have an executive session. I'm going to try to remember the statute.
No,
It's
go to the
MGL.
Go to the website.
Chapter 30A, Section 21. Nope, I'm gonna.
Got it here.
You have it?
Yeah.
Why was it cut off, though?
It's just it's been thingied in.
I think it's just the way it was scanned.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21-2. The 2 is the part I was missing. I got the rest of it.
Yeah.
All right. And so we will move from our regular session into executive session, only to return to regular session to adjourn the meeting. So we have 4 consent items, I believe, on the agenda that I am looking at because it is cut off. I should probably pull up the other one. You don't have any other, no.
It's
there's
just
no
the 4.
other.
It's just the 4.
The 4, okay. So I'm going to read those off. Number 1 is to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on July 23rd, 2024. Number 2 is to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on July 25th, 2024. Number 3 is to sign the warrant for the September 3rd, 2024 state primary. And number 4 is to appoint or reappoint the following election workers for the term of August 15th, 2024 to August 15th, 2025. Adley Atanian, Christy Barnes, Christina Cormier, Anita Fenton, Richard Fenton, Carrie Flynn, Sarah Ford, Julie Graham, Linda LaFave, Deirdre Malone, Jane McTagg, Jonathan Parsons, Michael Powers, Marilyn Polovich, Nicholas Polovich, Chow Quach, Bradford Roberts, Gina Roberts, Megan Ryan, Patricia Wheeler, Nancy Wilby, Amanda Woodward, and Jennifer Wright. Are there any objections to any of the consent items?
So moved.
Hearing none, I declare that they are all approved. And now is where I need the rest of that agenda.
We've done all that.
We've done all of those things.
It's just the warrant.
So we have, let's see.
Yeah, I was
The
wondering
warrant.
about that.
So let's, that was a consent item, right? So we can sign that after. Okay.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we just have our, we have no correspondence. Do you have a town administrator's report? No. And we have no public. So we're just going to go ahead and move into executive session. So I will. Oh, I'm
Sarah,
sorry.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Sarah, did you have anything for the public session? I'm gonna go with no. Okay. Very good. So I will ask for a motion to move from regular session into executive session, to return to regular session only to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, this needs to be a roll call vote.
Aye.
Kirk?
Aye.
Carol says aye, and I will vote aye as well. And I will declare that we are moving now into executive session. Thank you very much. We're gonna end the Zoom.